our agenda session to order. I know we have a couple board members that are on their way. We're going to have a couple that are not going to be here. They're going to be joining us, I think, Steve. I don't see anybody on there yet, but I do know.
Ben was going to try.
I think it's probably for the regular meeting.
Okay. I don't see anybody there yet. Do you, Steve?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we have some delegations. So Ms. Jones.
Okay. We have 3 delegations on the work session agenda, and then we have one that has been added. So we have Riley Lind, Lindsay Lind, Jeanette Markel, and then Harriet Reed. I'm going to read the delegation statement once, and then you all can follow in that order so that I don't have to reread that for everyone. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, please do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent, since the superintendent is responsible for individual employees. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes. I will tell you when you have 1 minute left. You may begin when you're ready. Ms. Riley Lynn. Mr. Riley Lynn, I'm sorry.
Happens all the time. All right, let me know that you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Good. Let me know when the time's going. Good.
When you start talking, it'll roll.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll let you know.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm here because as Hamilton County, we have a safety problem in our schools. Every day, schoolrooms are shut down and evacuated because some child's behavior has gotten so bad that it's no longer safe for other kids to remain in there. It's a common discussion topic on parents' Facebook groups, message boards, next door, all over social media, and I'm sure you've seen it on your side on the liability concerns. There are many causes over which we may have little to no influence, such as topics within the home. However, I'm here to talk about one where we can do something about it. Our neurodivergent kids, such as those with autism, which, as you might know, affects roughly 1 in 36 of our kids, according to the CDC. As you know, those with autism can struggle with self-regulation. When they get into an escalated state, whether it's from sensory input, changes in routine, or lack of appropriate coping mechanisms, it can be difficult for them to de-escalate. If not addressed in the time and place it's happening, this leads to self-injurious behavior, harming others, and property destruction. The classic school system's answer is to simply evacuate until it passes, or to try and train a teacher or para on a little bit of how to de-escalate. This is unacceptable. Just letting it pass does nothing to give the child the coping skills to ensure that it will not happen again, and our teachers already have a tough enough job. Teaching 30 kids math and reading is challenging enough. There's no need to make the teacher an armed guard, an RTI tutor, and a behavioral therapist. This is where I offer a solution. Applied behavior analysis has become generally recognized as the standard care for autism behavior. A registered behavior therapist, or RBT, is trained in the logic behind the behavior, uses a scientific method to understand the behavior and how it's impacted by the environment. An RBT could work one-on-one with the student, know their triggers before the escalation happens, and teach them the coping skills they need to reduce or eliminate these in the future. This is exactly what happens in an outside ABA clinic. The school district has a few RBTs on staff, but they currently only train the staff. Come on. You wouldn't have maintenance come in and show your teachers how to fix the HVAC system. You'd get a professional in there and you'd get it fixed. There are multiple ways we can fix this. You can contract with an ABA agency to come in and provide direct services as needed. Catoosa County does this, and the message boards are filled with parents happy that they've moved to that county where they support our neurodivergent kids. You can also allow outside therapists to come in paid by insurance companies at no cost to the school system. The only problem is you have a policy in place that directly prevents this. Policy 1.501 forbids outside service providers from offering services within the school. This policy is putting an undue burden on your teachers. This policy is costing you money with on-staff BCBAs, RBTs, and increasing your liability, I'm sure. And this policy is decreasing the safety of your kids. So I'm here to ask you to change policy 1.501 to allow outside therapists in the school. This is not a Herculean task. The policy can be changed if there's enough will. So I used to work in car sales years ago, and I trained that not making a decision is a decision. When the customer walks out of a car dealership not buying the car that day, they're actively choosing not to buy it. It's the same here. You can decide to act, or you can decide to kick the can down the road. You can say we need more data, but in the end what you're saying is it's not urgent enough for me to act to change a simple policy. So either way, tonight the board is making a decision, and I hope you make the right one. I'll take any questions. No? Okay, I look forward to your decision.
Lindsay Land.
All right. Good evening, school board members. I appreciate you taking the time to hear my speech about the Say Dyslexia law that passed in Tennessee in 2016. I am bringing awareness to this law and how there needs to be improvement in informing parents and educators about this law and others and services that are available. First, let's understand what dyslexia is. It's a learning disability that affects reading and writing skills. It is a neurological condition that can occur and is marked by people having difficulties with decoding and reading comprehension. It can occur at any level of intelligence, and many people with dyslexia do want to succeed in school. Early intervention and support can help people with dyslexia achieve success in the school in their careers. Per the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity, it is estimated 1 in 5 Americans have dyslexia. Per the Tennessee Department of Education Dyslexia Resource Guide, the nation's report card noted that reading has declined in both grades 4 and 8 since last reported in 2019. It also stated that nationally in 2022 that only 32% of students averaged between grades 4 and 8 were at or above proficiency levels in reading. I interviewed a family that attended District 7 schools and asked them questions as their child has a dyslexia diagnosis. I asked them questions directly from this law that was passed in 2016. And the testimony from the family said, does your child have dyslexia? Yes. Did you know about the Say Dyslexia law that was passed in 2016? No. Did your school inform you this law or the Tennessee Department of Tennessee Dyslexia Resource Guide exists? No, they never mentioned it. And they told me the state of Tennessee did not recognize dyslexia as a disability. Based on this law, did the school provide you the following? Did the school review your child's progress data regularly to determine if the interventions were effective? No, I only ever received one progress report. What interventions did the school provide? IEP read aloud for testing, extra time, no interventions at all that would assist a student with this diagnosis. Did the school send home updates about your child's progress approximately every 4.5 weeks? Never. What do you feel the school needs to improve based on your experience? They need a certified dyslexia interventionist, one-on-one teaching, and no groups. Was there anything you feel that the school did correctly with your child's disability? No, not at all. They have failed, which is why we left the school district as of this school year. Do you ever feel your child was properly supported? Never. Even the most important teacher, English, would not respond to my emails until the second or third time and refused to accommodate his needs in the classroom. In fact, she made it worse this previous year by doing specifically what we asked her not to do, which was read out loud in front of his peers. She said the accommodations outlined in the IEP were only provided by his intervention teacher, not in the regular classroom, and did not apply to her. Not only did I interview a family, I also posted the general question on social media posts if anyone heard about this law being passed in 2016. Out of 56 people that responded, 52 or 93% said no. This is a problem. Resources and laws need to be readily available to parents. There are multiple resource guides out there for disabilities, and a lot of parents do not know where to obtain this information. or know that it exists. With that said, I propose the following solutions. 1, make these resources available to parents by adding the information to the school's handbooks. Have resource guide lists that gives them links to this information. Actively post these resources on the school's website pages. As new laws get passed, provide adequate training to your administration and your teachers to understand what they are supposed to be following and what parents are supposed to be doing. PTAs should have special needs committees for parents that have special needs and can provide them access to the information. And there should be a standing school board liaison who focuses on laws, policies, and procedures for special needs. I am happy to volunteer to help you all understand where we are lacking in this school administration. Overall, the Tennessee Disability Coalition just released the 3rd annual report card, grades that the state on Tennessee, and they got a grade D. There are 115,000 students in our public schools who have an IEP. 14% of that population is disabled.
Thank you, Ms. Land.
You're welcome.
Do you have that document?
The Tennessee Resource
No,
Guide?
I didn't know if you had something you wanted to share with us because you had, oh, it's a packet. Never mind. I
I
apologize.
have a whole packet, but I do have what is the Say Dyslexia law that was passed in 2016. I highly suggest you all read this and train your staff because no one seems to know that this law passed in 2016.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lynn, one question too. The
Yes.
individual that you interviewed, you said they left the
Yeah.
public education system. If you don't mind me asking, are they in private school today or where?
Yeah, they switched to private school because the public school would not assist them and support them the way that the law even stated they should have been supported.
Does the family feel the child's being supported in the school environment he's in now, I assume?
Yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Steve, it looks like we got somebody in the waiting room here trying to get in.
Larry. And Felice has a, well, hold on. I saw it. I saw it. Felice has a question, Mr. Chair. Felice.
I just want to thank you, Ms. Lynn, for coming. I know you're very passionate, for a good reason because you love and care for your child and, and as far as, I wasn't familiar with the dyslexia law, I need to look into it. And about the ABA, that's a very, very tricky situation, between public school employees and, ABA employees from outside coming in. But I could see us, discussing it maybe during the December policy meeting and maybe doing more research. But I would see that there would need to be, quite a few restrictions, but we can explore it. And I'm not saying that we will do it or anything, but we can at least maybe discuss it, during our policy meeting in December.
Okay. So just to be fair across the board in the process, as it always goes, I have to acknowledge that when we have community delegations to speak, we don't dialogue back and forth across the dais. So I want to do that because I don't want to set a precedence that others don't get to do and have not been able to do in the past. But we can talk after this to decide or set a time for you to talk with your direct board member or the board members that were expressing interest. I just want to be respectful of everybody in the process. Ms. O'Markell.
Thank you, members of the board. At last month's board meeting, concerns were raised regarding the potential for teachers to have undue influence on students in a partisan way, which was cited as a reason to cancel field trips to the polls for Hamilton County civics students. As an educator with 40 years of experience, over 18 of those in Hamilton County, I must address this. These statements undermine the professionalism and integrity of our educators and erode the public trust that has been built over decades. In fact, I received numerous emails and phone calls expressing concerns about these remarks, with our educators feeling insulted and undervalued. Hamilton County educators work tirelessly to plan and teach the Tennessee state-approved standards with fidelity and integrity, while also addressing the wide-ranging needs of our students and adhering to the increasing mandates from both the district and state levels. The reality is they don't have time for anything that diverts their focus from teaching and student support. Our district is committed to serving the whole student and the whole community. Beyond academic instruction, our over 6,000 employees, from teachers to cafeteria workers to office staff, instill critical life skills such as respect, empathy, work ethics, critical thinking, and collaboration. These skills are crucial to fostering responsible citizenship, which is at the heart of our educational mission. Civics education plays a central role in preparing students to engage as productive citizens. In recognition of this, the Tennessee General Assembly passed the Governor's Civics Seal legislation in 2019. Hamilton County schools support this initiative and chose to allow field trips to the polls for civic students. This initiative cost a mere 0.0012% of the budget, and is invaluable opportunity for students to witness firsthand the importance of his civic engagement, both as a right and a responsibility. By doing so, we are directly contributing to the development of informed and active citizens. It's important to recognize that Hamilton County educators are fully committed to providing equitable access to high-quality instruction, including experiences that nurture a deeper understanding of civics. We applaud our district's commitment to students, communities, and the
Hold on one
greater
second,
purpose
Jeanette.
of...
Can we pause the time? Larry, I need you to go on mute, Larry.
Down.
Okay, but can we mute him? I just don't want to interrupt her.
Got it.
Hello?
Hey, Larry, we're in the middle of
you
delegations.
hear me?
We can hear you.
Not anymore.
But we don't want to.
I want to, Larry.
I think there's 3 of us on Zoom.
No, it's 3 of you, Larry. Bless your heart. It's 3. Okay, it was 3 Larrys. That's what it was. Okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Jeanette.
Go back to, we
Are we-
applaud our district's commitment to students, communities, and the greater purpose of education and building the foundation for good citizenship. As elected members of the school board, it is your responsibility to support and protect personnel in the performance of their duties. According to board policy, criticism of employees should be addressed privately with the director of schools for investigation and necessary action. Publicly criticizing educators can have damaging effects on morale and may contribute to a growing sense of distrust within the district. I urge you, moving forward, to be mindful of the words you use, as your leadership sets the tone for how our educators feel supported and valued. Your words and actions have a significant impact on the district's ability to recruit and retain talented educators. If we are to meet the Opportunity 2030 goal of retaining 93% of our teachers and 95% fully staffed on day one, my hope is 100%, we must show that Hamilton County is a district where educators feel respected and empowered by everyone. In recent years, educators have been under siege, and it is difficult to thrive in that environment. To build a strong, fully staffed public school system, we must focus on the importance of valuing and uplifting our educators. By doing so, we ensure that they can focus on their true calling, delivering exceptional learning experiences for the students they serve. Thank you. And let's work on working together to support our students, our educators, and the future of Hamilton County Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Harriet Reed.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to address the zero tolerance policy being considered by the board today. It's an overall good policy. However, the policy fails to specifically address the threat assessment team. Who does that include? Is it the school administration where the threat occurred? Does it involve the superintendent's office? Is law enforcement part of the team? I would definitely like to see the superintendent's office and law enforcement as part of the team. Drugs, assault, bringing firearms into school property or school events, or threats of mass violence are all very serious charges and threaten the well-being of safety of every student and school personnel at the school. Additionally, policy should include an immediate notification to parents anytime a school is placed on lockdown for any reason. Parents should not have to find out that their child was in danger long after the event, or in some cases not notified at all. Lack of notification does not make schools seem safer. It actually does the opposite, giving many parents a feeling that the school is not being transparent and that it doesn't see parents as an integral partner in the school. The Violence Summit that was conducted October 8th, 2024, was, in my opinion, a complete miss in that it did not involve parents. Elected officials and others on the panel claimed that they valued parent involvement and suggestions, but they held the summit with a few days' notice on a weekday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., a time that many parents were working and could not attend. Instead, the summit, which included 90% students, promoted those students who are minors as experts in deterring unwanted behaviors in school. If they are such experts, maybe we should employ them to determine security measures, not just in schools, but in our homes, businesses, and all public life in Hamilton County. Not to say that they shouldn't have an opinion, but to elevate it to such a high level at the summit was, in my opinion, a waste of a valuable school day that, based on test scores, none of the students should have missed. Their opinions could have been obtained in a school-wide survey or questionnaire with minimal time taken from their school day. The only highlight of the summit for me was one enlightened student saying that there should be more consequences to students for bad behavior. I couldn't have agreed more. And along those lines, the school board should consider additional policies that spell out specific consequences for other behaviors, such as repeated class disruptions, fighting, bullying, disrespectful behaviors towards those in authority, and other violations of school behavior policy. The broken window theory, meaning addressing incidents of bad behavior that don't rise to zero tolerance offenses, need to be addressed with consistent, meaningful consequences that apply to all students equally. This will ensure that students understand certain behavior is required of them to remain in school and provide an atmosphere more suitable to learning. Failure to do this inevitably harms these students because they will mistakenly believe that these types of behaviors will be tolerated throughout society, and nothing could be further from the truth. They will not be employable, nor will they be welcomed in most areas of society, and this extends their childhood behaviors well past their high school years and will ultimately end in imprisonment or worse. Please hold our valuable students and future leaders to a higher standard, because when we don't reach for the stars and instead reach for the lowest common denominator, we get what we deserve. A few shining stars if we're lucky, and the majority of others fighting for the scraps. Thank you.
Thank you. Felice?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you to all of our delegates. You have something, Ms. Jody? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, the policy committee, we did review the issue of should we include the definition of the assessment team in the policy, but the statute is cited, and the statute actually defines who the assessment team is. And I just want to read it here. The threat assessment team, hold on. Yeah.
So we can
This,
talk about it at the policy, at the agenda piece. It's in this policy.
mhm.
We can talk about it at that piece.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, hold it. We can talk, I mean, you can address it there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we have a presentation, I believe, Dr. Robertson?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Chairman Smith. A little bit of an edit on the agenda. It says workforce development, but we're actually, we pushed this to every student learns and every student belongs a couple of meetings ago. And so we're coming to you with a quarterly update on our first two commitments. Want to kind of reorient you with strategic plan and our just cause that all students thrive and experience a future without limits. Again, our mission and vision are essential to us moving this work forward. Here are our beliefs, and I think that one core belief here is that all students can learn. As we talk about these two commitments, you'll see that the majority of our strategies here are around ensuring that all students learn. Then our values, we've talked a lot about our values, and how these values actually drive our everyday actions towards our commitments. Again, the two commitments that we are looking at today is every student learns and every student belongs. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Stewart as these two commitments fall under her body of work, but want to point us back to this portrait of a graduate. And again, with these commitments, we see that this portrait of graduate has academically thriving, but really it's surrounded by essential skills. And what we're pushing for kids is when they graduate is not that they're not just academically prepared, but they're prepared to be solutions oriented, to be critical thinkers, all the skills that really employers are looking for. Dr. Stewart?
Yeah.
Larry.
Yes.
Everyone can hear you.
Okay.
Mute for me, okay?
Yes.
All right, let's dig into every student learns. And so just a reminder, each of our commitments has a goal and then strategies or objectives that fall under that goal. So under every student learns, it's that all of our students would improve in their learning during each school year. And we identified three things that we're really focused on. It's developing them as readers and writers and thinkers, ensuring that they're learning in the classroom and against the standard, and that we are focused on our early literacy priorities for our youngest learners. So just a reminder to set the stage on the difference between achievement and growth, and we've talked about this a little bit. We like to use the track to kind of convey this. Achievement is crossing the finish line. The finish line is proficiency. So these are kids that are proficient or mastered. So the students who have crossed the finish line, that's where we look at their achievement. Growth says no matter where they start on the track, whether it be behind the proficiency line or ahead, we want to ensure that they do at least one lap around. And remember with TVAS, one lap around is a 3, 4s and 5s means they're going faster, 1s and 2s means they're not going quite as fast. Here's another way to look at it. I don't think we've shown this to you as a visual, but it helps us understand where proficiency can increase while growth is decreasing. And so I want to show this. This is a hypothetical situation, but you look here, if on the left, the 22-23 school year, you had 50% of your students that were proficient, and then in 23-24, say 60% of them were proficient. But if you look at just where the smiley face and dots are moving, what you see is that 2 students made gains. So 2 more students crossed that finish line, so to speak, but 8 students declined. Those students might have still been across that line, but they declined. So in this kind of a situation, you would see that where proficiency actually increased, you still see growth decreasing. This is our overall high-level look at how we performed this last year. So achievement and growth overall held steady. You can see here in ELA and math that we increased from last year, that our ELA at a proficiency level, this is the success rate for all tested students, just so you know, it's everybody. ELA went down just a little bit in achievement while math went up. When you look there on the right side for TDAS, you can really see that based on the slide that we did before, sort of what happens. So our composite is a level 3. Our kids made that one lap around the track. Our literacy, though, they're going faster. They're going faster than the rest of the state and they're like peers. But our numeracy, they're not. Our numeracy, they're not going as fast. So while our numeracy actually went up, our math went up, you see that our growth was not where we would want it to be. Just a reminder, these are the metrics in the strategic plan that we've identified to measure this in the next few years, and so we're going to look at our progress against these metrics. All right, so this is a very, very busy slide, and so I'll talk us through it. The very top line here is proficiency, right? We're looking at student achievement. We as a district are committed to looking at student achievement, to look at all of our kids, but then also to look at our student groups and to hold ourselves accountable for gains both ways. So if you see here on achievement, you can see where we started last year at 34.2. Our target for this year, based on our Opportunity 2030 goal, was 37.9, and we exceeded that target. We achieved at overall success rate of 41.1%. But then when you look at our student groups, you can see that the performance of our student groups declined. So we are not meeting our individual goals there with our student groups and our special populations. And so certainly there's work to be done there. And you can also see our percentile rank and kind of how that fleshes out with all and with the student groups. When you look at our growth, you can see that our goal is always a level 4 or 5. We always want to exceed just one lap, but we are composite level 3 this year. But you do see that we saw some accelerated learning with a couple of our student groups, right? So our BHN students and our English learners both went faster this year. They grew more, but our economically disadvantaged moved slower, and our students with disabilities are there at a level 3. I want to highlight the students with disabilities. One of the things that has changed really significantly in the last 2 years in our county is we've really restructured our exceptional ed department, moving it from not just compliance, but to really focus on learning. And you can see that in this data here, and it's been a hard metric to move, but we're seeing gains in that space. When you look at the K2, what this is looking at is kids in the very bottom quartile. So we're wanting to pull the kids that are in the very bottom learning up out of that quartile. And so what you can see here is we didn't reach those objectives this last year, and in fact went backwards in this metric. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in our strategies on the next page and how we're addressing that. But the all group, as well as most of the subgroups you see, are not performing where we would want them to be, while our exceptional ed students or our special education students are really doing better. That fourth metric with all student learns is around evidence of self-efficacy. This was originally measured with our Panorama survey that we don't use anymore. So we need to establish a new baseline, and we'll be doing that and measuring this and getting this information a different way. So you'll expect to see more information on that next year. Here are what we're doing this year to address what you saw on the last page. And I'm not going to hit every single one of these bullets. Happy to talk about anything you'd like me to, but the highest thing there is our K2 Literacy Now initiative. This data that you're looking at really surfaced for us mid-year last year. We could see the trend data. We could see what was happening. And I pulled together a group of principals. I pulled together district leaders, and we just had some real honest conversations about what's happening and why is it happening. And the result of that is our Literacy Now initiative. What we see is that in the implementation of our EL curriculum, we implemented during the pandemic, and there was an overemphasis on module and an underemphasis on our skills rotation. We've done a lot of work to address that and to increase the expertise in our buildings around this work. And we're seeing some early signs of change in pedagogy that we think is going to move us in the right direction. We're also focusing on literacy a lot, and especially with our early learners. Last year we piloted a program called Literacy First in one of our schools and saw really significant gains. So we've extended that pilot to 11 of our schools, and this is one-on-one tutoring for these kids, and it's designed to bring them to grade level, and we start with the earliest learners and try to close those gaps from the very beginning, and we're seeing some really great things there.
Are we doing that right now?
Right now. Yep, in 11 of our schools. What I want to say about Literacy First is this has been funded in partnership with some local funders. We've got people all over our county who are really focused on this work, and we're hoping to be able to expand this. Right now, it's focused on kindergarten. Literacy First as a strategy really does K1 and 2 with the goal of getting everyone to grade level by 3rd grade. So we're hoping to expand that. Also, just anytime you're talking about student learning, you have to talk about high quality instructional materials, implementing them with fidelity and with integrity. We are sustaining those priorities, ensuring that our schools understand the guardrails and that we're implementing appropriately. But also want to say we're in year 2 of a math adoption. In year 1, you often see a dip due to implementation. We would hope to see us improve, especially in that growth space around the math adoption. And then the other strategy that we're using or expanding this year is, you guys have heard this from us, that last year we had RTI facilitators in only our elementary schools. This year we've expanded it to K-8 to ensure that we're intervening all the way through the 8th grade at the school level with someone focused on that piece. So, all right, this is just a reminder. I know we talked about this a little bit at the board retreat, but our priorities, we do have a year-over-year goal. So every single year we have a new goal or target that are moving us toward that Opportunity 2030 goal. And so what you're looking at right here are our goals for next year. So this time next year, this is what we'll be measuring ourselves against. All right, moving to Every Student Belongs. These are our objectives here, that every kid, that we're going to create a sense of belonging in schools and communities for our kiddos, that there will be strengthened relationships between schools and families, and that we would continue to focus on well-being. You know, one of our values is that well-being precedes learning, and so ensuring that our students are well is really, really important. Here are the metrics for that specific objective that are identified in our strategic plan, and here's how we're doing against these targets. So again, going to that top target about the percentage of students reporting a connection in SSP, I realize that a lot of you are not familiar yet with the student success planning. We are going to bring you some information on student success planning next month so you understand what this is. But in short, it is us identifying students' strengths and needs in schools and having individualized plans for them that both help create opportunities for the things that they love and remove barriers on the places that we see. So we measure in student success plans the connections that students have that we're making to their strengths and their needs, and how many connections exist. And what you can see here is that we've exceeded our goal. Our goal this year was 39. It's getting small now. I've got to put these on. It was 39%, but we've exceeded that. For all students at 55.6, we're going to need to adjust, obviously, our goals coming out of this year. And then you can see in every single student group, we've seen a significant amount of growth. I think what I would point to on this is tremendous work at the school level. All schools have what we would call like a student success team or a CARES team, student support team. This is really evidence of that work coming together, where our counselors, our social workers, our student support coaches, administration are all meeting together to meet this need, and we're seeing obviously some really significant success. When you look here at the percentage of students receiving more than one discipline infraction, we broke it into 2 buckets. You've got K-5 at that 3.1% was our baseline, and our 6-12. And you can see that our goal in K-5 was 2.9, and we're at 4.4, and you can kind of see that elementary line move over. I do want to put a big asterisk next to this line. Our elementary schools have not been inputting all of their discipline. That's not been an expectation for our county for a while. Last year, we made that an expectation, that when there was a discipline incident, it needed to be logged in PowerSchool, not kept on Excel spreadsheets or Google Forms. And so we expected this number to go up before it comes down. But we don't think that this is necessarily reflective of increasing incidents of behavior. It's just, we think that this is a reporting piece. So hopefully we'll be able to talk more about that as we see these numbers come down. A lot of success in our secondary schools here. You can see that we exceeded our target, and all across the board, except for our students with with disabilities exceeded their target. Our secondary schools are doing a lot of work in this space. I think we attribute some of this to a couple of things. Our connected middle schools, our freshman success, also our choice academies and connected classrooms, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. The last thing there that we're talking about is the percentage of families responding favorably to questions on student belonging. You see that we've seen a decrease there. Just a reminder that pulse checks are fairly new. Our response rates are not yet where we want them to be, but still, this is a data point. It's an important data point, and so we're continuing to work hard to be able to listen to our families and their concerns. That last indicator there around self-management and social awareness, similar to the self-efficacy, we were measuring that through Panorama. We're no longer measuring it that way, and so we'll need a new baseline to see those things. Some highlights of what we're doing in Every Student Belongs. I'll point to that second bullet. You know, you saw on the last one, we have some concerns around parent satisfaction. And so making sure that we are engaging our families in multiple ways. We built toolkits for family engagement for the school level and done some training at the district level with our team to increase that engagement. We talked a lot at the board retreat about RTI-2B plans. Every single school has a RTI-2B plan, and we do RTI-2B walks in our schools. 56 of our schools were exemplar in this against a rubric, which is pretty exciting. I mentioned SSP. 61 of our 73 schools are SSP schools. Next year, it will be all of them. And I'll point to that Connect Classroom and Choice Academies. What's exciting about this intervention, and Dr. Robertson mentioned this weekend, was we are really committed to building a continuum of responses to student behavior needs. We introduced Connect Classrooms and Choice Academies last year, and it's a reset space for students in different ways, and they can be assigned there for different periods of time. They have to demonstrate proficiency or competencies in order to come back into the standard school day. Many of our schools opted in for this in year one, and then it about doubled in year two because the schools that had adopted it early showed success, particularly in discipline and in attendance. And chronic absenteeism was certainly impacted as well. That's measured in another one of our commitments. So we've also seen increased participation in arts and clubs and athletics. Our middle schools, every single one of our middle schools has expanded their clubs portfolio. Our high schools have as well. We're increasing the number of sports teams in schools, and so we see that as connected to the data that you're seeing today. Here are our targets for this year. So this is where we're focused and what we're hoping to see as we move throughout the year and what we'll be measuring ourselves against. So just a reminder of how we operate. You guys get board updates in this fashion. This is the rhythm that we've done this year, where we did an overview in September. Today we're bringing Every Student Learns and Belongs. In March we'll bring Every Employee Valued, and in June Every School Equipped and Community Served. So.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stewart. Have a couple of lights on, if we may. So, Ms. Schaefer.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. I just wanted to go back to Every Student Learns.
Sure.
And when I'm looking at the growth, and for what I'm seeing in my district, in my schools, growth went down in our numbers. And I'm hearing a lot from my administrators and from teachers concerns about our top performing students not receiving maybe the RTI plans to help them continuing to grow. Because like what you showed us in this chart is, some of those top achievers go down, they went down. And I wanted to know, like when I look at the student groups that you have, the top achievers aren't even listed. We're only looking at certain subsections of students, not every student. So I wanted to know what we can do better in reaching those top 20% maybe, not just the bottom 20%, and keeping them growing.
Yeah. So I'll address your second concern first. We are reporting out the way the state reports out. So obviously in the all student group, all students are represented. The state reports data to us just like that, which is we mirrored our strategic plan that way. So that's why the student groups that are represented are represented. To the point of our highest learners, it is a really, really important point and something that we are actively working against. What we've seen is that as a whole group, we have sort of shifted. If you look at our data over the last 5 years, we've gotten a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. But what we're seeing is our field hasn't shifted as much as it needs to, and so it's causing some of this decline at the top. And we are losing ground with our, to your point, with our highest learners. We've looked at that data any number of ways. It is absolutely a conversation that we are having around that grade level curriculum and making sure we're creating those enrichment opportunities for our students to extend their learning. We just, in our very last principal and AP meeting, did some at the student level, showing them student lists. This is where these kiddos are. This is how they're performing against the benchmark. We need to be making sure that they're meeting the expectation and or exceeding it, and schools are building plans around doing that. So I think you're spot on. This is absolutely a significant concern and something that we're actively moving towards. I think the other thing that is just really concrete that I can give you, and I've talked about that K2 space, what we found out when we dug into those skills rotations was that sometimes our kids that were at grade level were not getting rotations at the teacher's table during skills rotation. And so what we saw was our tier 1 kids were declining and our tier 2 and 3 kids were moving up. And so we have, that part of literacy now is shifting exactly that to ensure that every single child gets face time with the teacher during those skills rotations, and that our RTI structures, that tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 have very explicit pieces, but tier 1 kiddos still need high quality learning during RTI. And so that has been a priority for us and something we're certainly talking about. And you're absolutely right, it's needed.
So in like the 6th through 8th level,
Yep.
that period that's supposed to be for that, we're going to emphasize more of pushing those top tier 1 students and not just being like a study hall, right?
Yes. Yes. I think you're asking me to check on who's using it as a study hall. I will ensure that that is conveyed as a priority. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Daugherty?
Dr. Stewart, thank you for a really good overview, and thank you for including the data. Justin, I know you love data. I love data too because numbers don't lie, right? And it allows a level of accountability. Sure. So one comment and then one question. The comment is Justin, I've been pretty clear in terms of the way I view K through 2 literacy and just being a bedrock, and I know we all can agree on that because it's the gateway to kids learning and growing. So I think as we approach funding, I think that's something we seriously need to look at in terms of how we're staffing. A great example is in some of the schools that I'm in my district that are arguably high performing. What I've seen from an RTI perspective, they're bringing kids in that are all the way up to that 50 percentile as opposed to cutting it off at the 25. And I don't know if that's a countywide approach or if that principal is making their own discretion. Something to maybe consider because evidently they have seen results and you know, continuing that trajectory, especially when you take into account that we've got a goal of, 60% by 2030, which seems like such a massive gap. But I just wanted to thank you for the data and putting all that together because it is so important to track. And then my question is from a reporting standpoint, when the data comes in, is that all attributed to the benchmark? So in terms of how we're seeing progression throughout the year, how are we tracking that? Like, where's that data coming from?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's multiple ways. So we do benchmarks in 1st through 11th grade 3 times a year, right? You've probably heard about those district level benchmarks case. We also do Ames Web and MAP, which are the growth indicators, and we do those 3 times a year as well. Those don't overlap. Those screeners are required by state law, right? So you've got to do those too. So there's progress monitoring in those ways. I think the best way to think about that is like quarterly monitoring. At the school level, though, there's multiple different rhythms of assessment that they do, whether it be like in EL, you have microphase assessments, which is just aligned to the curriculum every 10 days, which is really important, again, in the K2 space, that you're closing those gaps and looking at that data really, really regularly. So microphase data comes in every 10 days. There's actually a 5-day cycle in there as well. So most schools have, or all schools have, some rhythm of formative assessment. We've got a question bank, it's called Mastery Connect, where all the questions are aligned to standards and teachers can create assessments against the standards, assess the kids, make instructional decisions that way. So it's my way of saying there's formative assessments that are happening at every single building in any variety of ways. And then from a district standpoint, we look at it through those growth screeners and through the benchmarks. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. King?
Hopefully, there's a few resolutions that are presented to our legislature this summer that involve pre-K, and hopefully those pass, and get a few more funded classes of pre-K in every school. I was just gonna kind of mention a generalization that sometimes people don't understand. If you're a high-performing
Talking your mic.
if you're a high-performing school, it is harder for you to get that growth. No, you'd shake your heads, but
It's not.
That is a historical Hamilton County Schools misnomer that we have been actively going against. And I think it goes back to part of the issue that Ms. Schaefer points out, is that when you have this expectation that it's hard to move a high-achieving kid, well, oftentimes you live up to that self-prescribed belief that it's hard to move this kid. And so that is quite clearly not an accurate statement.
okay.
Don't
So
say it
my
again.
question, because what I'm trying to picture is, I've got a student that scores a 60 and we want them to get to an 80, and there's a growth of 20 to get that growth, and then we have a student that's scoring a 96 and we want them to get that same growth to get to a 98, but there's less room to grow.
I'm going to say it in my terms, and I'm going to
Okay.
let Shannon say it more accurately.
Because we had these arguments
I know,
in
we've had
administrative.
them for years.
I know. All right.
So I think of it, again, as like, if you've got a group of kids that they're starting halfway across the track, right? They're all starting halfway around. Did that kid that's in our system beat that like group of peers all the way back one lap around? And if they did, they're a 4 or 5. If they're a little bit behind, they're a 1 or a 2, right? So it's against their like peers making that one lap. And again, not to beat this horse, but it's I think one of the issues is not only what Dr. Stewart said, but this belief that you got a high achieving kid, it's hard to make them grow, is what's leading to the point that Ms. Schaefer brought.
Okay.
Shannon, say it much more.
I have been preparing my whole professional career for this question. I'm so happy you
Did I
asked it.
segue this well?
No. This was explained to me once in this way, and it made a lot of sense, so I'm going to offer it up as well. The first thing I want to do, put out there just to help with concrete, the highest performing growth district in the state of Tennessee year over year is Williamson County. So we know it to be true that it's not that if you're high performing, you can't grow. They have both high performance and growth. So we know that the model works that way. When you think about TVOS, typically you think of student scores in a bell curve, and I promise I'm not going to go very far, but you think about most kids in the middle and some at the ends, like tails at the ends. The way that growth works is they take that bell curve, they like stomp on it and squash it flat. Okay, so everything is even. So it's not easier to move in the middle and harder to move at the fringes. It's actually an even thing called normal curve equivalence. And so when you're talking about normal curve equivalence, what you're doing is a move from 5th to 6th is the same as a move from 97th to 98th. So it's all equal. So it is equal for kids to move at any point on that line than it is what end they are in. Does that help? I got really excited and couldn't breathe for a second.
Thank you, Shannon.
It's my nerd part.
I'm gonna add potentially two things. Like, it's not as black and white as like, if I got a 96 this year, I have to get a 97. That's not true. There's a band, right? So if I got a 96 this year, I could get a 94 next year and still be a 3 or 4 or 5. Does that make sense? It's not always, it's comparative. So I think that's really important. I think the other thing that I would point out in terms of growth is what we're seeing when we dig into our data, and Ms. Schaefer, this kind of goes to some of what you were saying. Some of our higher performing schools in numeracy in particular are having the most significant TVAS index pulling our data down, right? So when you look at the proficiency, it's performing, but that growth is really pulling us down, and we've got a lot of focus on that, particularly in middle school this year, because we're seeing it's not our schools that have lower achievement that are pulling that numeracy score down. It's the opposite.
Thank you. Ms. Felice?
Yeah, I just have, I guess, a couple of comments. One is one thing that hurt, I'll say, a few years back, Ottawa, high school and all, is when they removed the IB program, and I know that was controversial. And I can just say how the community finds out, and a lot of times the higher moving the higher level students, they seek elsewhere. It's like you get this culture of a great program and it's removed. And I would love for us to, I'm not proposing IB again, but if there's a way we could get some culture of a program that creates unity instead of just taking AP classes, maybe some kind of unity of culture around AP students or something that makes other students look forward to it and make it competitive and want to really stay in the program. Part of that is retaining really good teachers because they hear about the teachers and the successful ones, and a lot of that is what drives the school to greater success, whether the school continues up or whether it goes down as far as growth. The other comment is about the benchmarks. I remember when we implemented as a teacher the quarterly benchmarks, the extra ones, and I know there's pros and cons. The pros, to me, it made teachers accountable to stay on task and teach to the standards and go at a certain pace. The cons is it takes away, classroom instructional time. And so there's a give and take there with the benchmarks. But anyway, I just had those comments.
Can
Thank
I
you.
just say a couple
Go ahead.
things?
Go ahead.
I do think on the benchmarks, we have the opportunity to talk about this a lot. I think the growth in learning in our county can, in my opinion, is attributable to a couple of really significant changes that happened 5 and 6 years ago. One of them was benchmarks, one of them was standards aligned instruction, and one of them was high quality instructional materials. So you see that progress over time. Those 3 things were a big, big part of it. The second thing I'll say to the IB program is I just wrote down to get some data on the multiple pathways around advanced academics that are in all of our high schools. Where I know Ottawa, that was really challenging. We have seen increased participation in AP, state dual credit, all of those pieces, and I'll get you those numbers because we do have more kids county-wide participating in those kind of things. I think that's important for you to see, including at Ottawa. So.
Okay, and maybe the success, maybe
Sure.
it was the benchmarks as far as the part I said, the pros. Mm-hmm. It made teachers accountable to stay on task and teach all the standards they should by that time. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Stewart. No more lights, so let's move down to discussion of evaluation of our superintendent. I believe that everybody has a copy of that in your folder.
You should have a white folder, Chairman, that's got, you should have this, it's got two things in it. It should have the instrument that's being used and then also self-evaluation in it. So I want to, if you don't mind, talk through a couple of things.
But for, I guess, Carissa and maybe Gary, this document is not new. We've seen this before. You new folks on the board. Dr. Robertson, if you just kind of speak to how we've done this in the past and then also speak to your personal evaluation. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. So this instrument is similar to the one we used last year. Chairman and I agreed on a couple of small changes. They're very minor. For example, the very first metric is just changed because it was talking about just developing a strategic plan. We've done that. Now we're implementing it. So not a lot of major changes. You'll see that majority of them are tied to metrics that come from the strategic plan. So on the self-evaluation, this is the format that the previous board wanted me to use. Used it last year. It's very similar format to what I used last year. The only addition is a letter at the beginning. We'll go with this year if we want to adjust it. If you want to see something different moving forward, I can do that. But I would just follow it the same way we did last year. I want to put out there to board members that we would ask that this gets returned to Steve, and Steve will send out a Word version. So if you want to fill this out on your computer, sign it and email it back to him, you can, or you can hand do it, but that it come back to Steve by December 9th. That way he can get it on the board agenda for December. In between now and then, I met one-on-one with several board members last year to go over this with them. that's helpful for me. If you're willing to do that, I would appreciate that opportunity. And I can just, work with you on scheduling that. Any questions that you might have moving forward over the next couple of weeks as you fill it out, I'm available, or Steve or the chairman would be available to help you.
So you mean we don't get to score you on how you dress? No, I did that as a first year board member.
I was about to say, you're laughing, but that actually was.
Yeah, I'm being facetious because, and I was like, who cares as long as he does his job and doesn't wear pajamas? Not him, but the previous superintendent. But I do want to say, just for record purposes, to make sure that the entire board understands that anything that we document on, excuse me, Larry, oh, that's Ben. Anything that goes onto the document, whether you do it, that's being kind of face. That's being face right here. There go Larry. Oh, Larry. Wanted to make sure that all the board members understand that anything that you record on the document, whether you write it in handwriting or in Word document, it is public record. It goes out. So if you make note on it and you forget and you send it in and you call Justin a jerk, he's gonna see it. If you make note of it and you say you like this tie, he's gonna see it. So just saying that, and everybody else will see it. Just wanted to put that out there because we had that happen one year at the board, and they didn't understand. They didn't know that. They thought it was going to be typed up a different way or whatever. No, whatever you submit is what goes to the public. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody when they're doing their document.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Jackie.
So our expectations is to evaluate him based on the 3 months we've been here? Is that what this is asking?
Yep.
And the data that...
And the data that you have from the strategic plan. And then he'll meet with you. Of course, like he says, every superintendent has typically done this. They meet with the board members one-on-one and have the dialogue, kind of like you do with your boss when you have your evaluation. Same process. Similar, very, very similar. But just, so you have that opportunity to do that.
So, and he invited that, but I encourage that.
Yeah.
To reach out to Justin, each one of us, and spend a little individual time with him. Larry, did you have a question? Okay, all right, very good. Okay, Miss Felicia, your light's on. Did you have a question, or is that just a leftover? That's okay. Okay, no worries. Okay. Okay, that takes us down to committee chair updates, and I'll start over here with Mr. King, Facilities Committee updates.
So we've
Talking your mic, please.
We've got our choices. Just a reminder, as we make these choices today, these are not in a hierarchy of priority, really. They are all, as we go to vote, they're all going to be voted on at the same time to be active at the same time, or as close to at the same time as possible. So,
Okay.
we will, next probable facility meeting, we'll look at January or February, but nothing anytime soon.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. King. Finance, Mr. Daugherty.
Thank you, Chairman. No major updates other than, part of our commitment going into next year is to have discussions earlier, a little more often. And I think part of that is being transparent, being accountable, and ensuring that we're all rowing in the same direction. So my ask, and I know you all are already doing a good job of it, is just to encourage you over the next couple months to meet with your principals individually and just speak with them and kind of better understand what's important to them going into the next year, any gaps that they see, especially from a funding perspective within the base staffing model. Because if we don't know, we don't know. So I think it's a good opportunity for them to speak freely. So I would encourage you to do that. Creets, I know you're already probably doing that. You're doing a great job with that. But that would just be my one ask. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Daugherty. So, policy, Ms. Schaefer.
We had a pretty successful first policy meeting. I wanted to say thanks to everybody for participating. And our next policy meeting is going to be December the 10th. And I'm hoping to do it a little bit earlier, maybe 4 or 4:30 start. I have to confirm that with Steve. But we will hopefully pick up the policy that we started to discuss at the board retreat on our board goals, because we don't have too many first reads to go over, so we wanted to kind of pick that up at the next policy meeting and dive more into what we as a board want to set as our annual goal. And as we stated at the last board meeting, that we're going to be reviewing our policies on an annual basis. So every policy will be reviewed each year. And the first priority of that as a board is to set our goals, our annual goals. So we will kick that off or pick it back up from our board retreat on December 10th.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Mr. Groen, anything on transportation? Now you can unmute.
I'll be getting with Brandon Allen and having a meeting before the end of the year, my initial meeting with some of the owner-operators. And afterwards, I'll schedule, next year, in January probably, I will schedule a transportation committee meeting.
Okay. All right, thank you. Be sure to mute yourself again, okay? Okay. That takes us over to our discussion about tonight's agenda, and as I always like to do, I'm rather than just go over piece by piece by piece, I'm going to ask you to bring up any item you want to pull out right now and let's talk about. So, ready, set, go. Okay, Ms. Schaefer.
Let's pull that 6.309 zero tolerance offenses so we can clarify the
Okay.
threat assessment team.
And that's on tonight for approval on our final read. So go ahead and speak to that, Ms. Schaefer. Thank you.
Ms. Shannon, can you come? We talked about this at the policy meeting, and I brought that specific question to Ms. Shannon about why do we not define the threat assessment team in our policy. So I'm going to let her answer that.
Yes. As you were starting to say, we reference statute instead. And so that way, if the statute updates, we can also be clear in our policy and have that updated as well. But the statute is listed as a footnote in there. And in that statute, there is a definition of threat assessment team. I'm not sure I'm going to get it right, Ms. Schaefer, without having it right in front of me. I don't know if you do, but
I do. I can read it.
Okay, great.
Okay. The threat assessment team must include LEA personnel and law enforcement personnel. And LEA's threat assessment team may include juvenile services personnel, a representative of the local district attorney's office, a representative of the Department of Children's Services, and mental health service providers. So can you tell the public who is in our threat assessment team?
I mean, we follow the law is what we do. So that might be better for Dr. Robertson.
Yeah, so we don't include, we've had conversations with potential of moving for someone from DA's office and from juvenile court, but we haven't done that to date. So our LEA representatives typically are principal at the school level, and then law enforcement can be either the sheriff's office or any of the jurisdictions that serve our schools. So for example, East Ridge Police in East Ridge, or Soddy Daisy Police in Soddy Daisy.
So we do include law enforcement, and it's the
We have to
principal
include.
of the school.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks for pointing that out. We are mandatory reporters, and we have to include.
Okay. Good. Okay. Mr. Daugherty?
Thanks, Chairman. I know we're voting on or approving providing some funding for redoing the county's website. So just for the public, Justin, keep me honest here, we work with a third-party company that manages our website. And part of the challenge is that anytime we need to make a change or an adjustment, it's a lengthy process, and there's a work order request, and there's a monetary cost tied to that. So long-term, this is a better decision, so fully support that. But what I did want to just touch on something. I had an opportunity to host a community forum on Monday, and Justin Robertson and some other folks from our county help join and kind of help facilitate it. We had 35 people show up, and we had 16 parents come and speak, and varying interests, obviously all relevant, majority relevant to Hamilton County public education. But the most common question or concern was around the way we approach our technology usage within the schools. I've got a third grader and a second grader, so my third grader has a Chromebook for the first time, so I'm intimately aware of utilizing it. And Chairman Smith, I know that you encouraged us to read Anxious Generation, which I'm reading now. And long story short, Justin, the conversation I had, and really what I kind of want to hopefully have the support of the board is I think there's an opportunity for us to maybe take a step back and look at how we are implementing technology in our schools with our kids in terms of providing safe and effective parameters. I think part of our job as a board is to minimize or completely subvert liability. And we all can agree as parents that we live in a digital age where threats are no longer technically just outside. I use the analogy at the forum, parents say, look both ways before you cross the street, or don't climb a tree too high. Now we live in an age where it's like, don't get in that web platform, or don't speak to someone you don't know and on a thread or text chat. I mean, it's completely changed. So I guess my long story short, I'm not trying to take up too much time, but Justin, I think it would be really helpful and advantageous for us as a county to maybe take a step back and meet with the director of IT and kind of say, hey, how are we implementing technology for these kids? Are we providing great guidelines and principles and safety standards? And I look at it from a business perspective as an adult. We're constantly having continued training around phishing attacks and cyber malware attacks. And in this situation, we've got thousands and thousands and thousands of kids with technology that we're responsible for. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to maybe lead across the state in terms of the way we approach it, the parameters we set. So hopefully I've got your support and at least just having a conversation, just having a healthy conversation. Because I think if there's ever a nonpartisan issue, this would probably be one as it pertains to safety.
Yeah, I think there are a couple components to this that you and I have talked about, right? There's kind of the security component. There's also the component, I'll use the example that kept coming up Monday night, is YouTube available, right, of what is accessible and what isn't. And when I talked to our IT director, and Dr. Stewart's very aware of this, we've had this conversation prior, sometimes there's a tug of war between IT and teaching and learning about what needs to be available and what's not. We haven't had that conversation, honestly, in probably 2 or 3 years. So it's probably time for it to come back up. And then I think the third component of it is screen time kept coming up. And I see screen time a couple different ways. There's play screen time, and then there's work, school screen time. But I think that we probably need to have a good conversation, even when it's school screen time. Is there, a standard that we want to, or a threshold that we want to maintain at school? So that, from our conversations, what came up Monday, that's kind of the three things that I've been thinking about.
Okay, awesome.
Dr. Robertson, maybe at our December agenda session, maybe bring your IT person and let's kind of do a deeper dive.
Bring IT and then a couple of people from teaching and learning, because it really goes hand,
Okay.
the second
Okay.
component especially goes hand in hand.
Okay.
I'll talk to Mr. Bennett. I think there's some updates that probably need to happen, maybe in an executive session, but we'll see. He doesn't like them, but I think we can do it.
Okay? Thank you. Mr. King.
Before I ask about what to pull, are we, so while we're talking about technology, I see our science committees being set up for adoption. Are we still heading in the direction of pretty much online only books for science, or what? Well, I know K through 2 is a little different, but
Yeah,
3 and up.
I don't know if I would say we're heading in that direction. I think much of what we have now has both hard copy workbook and online digital High school, of course, has more digital access. The younger you get, the
Right.
more paper content. But I think we'll look for what the best curriculum is, and most curricula you can get in both formats. So I think it's just going to be evaluation for quality, and certainly these committees have teachers and parents and administrators, and all will have some good, I think, dialogue about what's best used in on the ground.
I just thought it might be a good segue with the teaching and learning part to maybe look at science as an option. So my question, Chairman, is can I discuss 9B right now, operations?
Absolutely. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So, Dr. Robertson, can you, just for the board and that, we know what our 5 votes are, but down under facilities approvals, there's also approval number 1 and approval number 2. Can you go ahead and explain those two things?
So approval, number 1 is basically just making it very clear that if this gets approved, that these are not in priority order, that we're going to move together and as quickly as we can on all 5. The second one is to approve us going and working with the county to enter into the option of a construction manager at risk, where we've always done a design bid. This gives us another option. It would, if this is approved, we would always have to come back to you guys to get approval on whichever way we're going to approve the architect, but it's just giving us that second option as we move forward.
And what I'm wanting to be clear with, so everybody knows, as we vote a yay or a nay, we're voting for all this, including approval number 1 and approval number 2.
You're voting for that, and you're also voting for, remember on the next page, what we're presenting as next, what we think are the next options, and for us to go ahead and
Phase
start
1.5.
exploring. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have called it phase 2. That's confusing people, but to start exploring, and also just to make it more transparent that we do believe that step of getting an architect on board early to explore options at properties is a very effective use of our funds.
Right. And we'll have a little more concrete list of those for December as far as what falls after we've made this vote.
I'm not following you. I think what are you
On a few of for the next phase, just what we're going to start discussing.
So in December, I think I'm following you here. December, what you can expect to see is kind of the first round of that deferred maintenance money.
Yes.
That's $60 million. Is that what you're talking about?
And then also, what from these, what some possible domino effects are that we'll have to address.
Sure.
Before what was phase 2, now we're looking really a little bit different of a phase 2.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. I was hoping we'd
Sorry,
get
I
those
wasn't following
buddies.
you for a
Yeah,
second.
that's
My
okay.
fault.
I was hoping that's what we'd get in December, so.
Okay. Ms. Felice?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. As far as the IT, I think one of the biggest improvements really is not using the cell phones in the classroom, because to me, and they wanted to use them for instruction a lot, looking at materials, and to me, that was the greatest liability or risk right there. So, and the other thing about curriculum, I've used different curriculums, and to have both a hard copy and the online resources were great to have, and just to easy access to the curriculum that way as well was great. So I think those are great options.
Okay. Mr. King, did you light up again, or was that just approved? Okay. So I have no more lights. Anything else? Okay, let's take about a 5-10 minute break, and we'll come back and start our session. Agenda